to be able to share some good information. I want everyone to know that this is being recorded and it's also being live streamed. So please be mindful of that as well. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We cover DC, Northern Virginia, and we expand all the way to Baltimore. So we do a lot of good work. And if you are not a member of this great organization, we would love for you to become a member. Today, we're going to talk about electric school bus funding. Big popular issue right now. A lot of good reasons why we should have clean school buses. And one of the categories of clean school buses is electric school buses. And we're going to talk about electric school buses today. But I want to, before I bring up our speakers, as always, I do have some announcements as well. First thing is we do have through the Mid-Atlantic Electric School Bus Experience project, MEEP, we do have a couple more EV chargers available for some school districts. So I think they're level 2 chargers, and they are available for any school districts that would like them. We can get them to you. Just send Laurel or I an email. She'll put them in the chat, and we can get your school district some level 2 chargers. We are actually trying to get some for some community centers and all that other stuff, but that's a webinar for another day. All right. But for your school districts, let us know. We have some right now. So they're free. They're free, Free. All right. The other thing I want to mention is the Empower program that we lead in the area. It's a workplace charger program. And so we want folks, hey, Mr. Austin, good to see you. All right. We gave them one. We got another one for you if you want. I think we got 2 or 3 left. So we want to make sure we get rid of those. They're paid for by the government, and they work and they're free. So let us know. We'll get them to you soon, ASAP. So I wanted to mention the workplace charging program. We're trying to get people to sign the pledge. Some of you are already putting chargers out there for your workers, but we'd love for you to sign the pledge. It's that you will commit to pledge to offer EV charging at your workplace. That's not saying you're going to do it today, but it's just making a pledge that you will look towards offering workplace charging. So if you can click that link and send that back to us right after by December 1st, that would be great. We would be greatly appreciative of those efforts for you to take just 5 minutes, fill that out, and send that back, that pledge form, okay? The other thing is we do have a couple other announcements, and we'll have Laurel do the announcements at the end as well. Electric vehicle charging for HOAs and churches. So we have, this is a great opportunity. We're gonna have a nice webinar. We have 2 programs that could really benefit for this. One is our MEEP, which will deploy a level 2 charger for your HOA or your church. And also you can sign a pledge, because a lot of churches have employees. So they can sign up for the Empower program to say that they're committed to offering workplace charging. And then you can also get a level 2 charger as well. So you get 2 bites of the apple. The same thing for HOAs if you have a clubhouse as well. So I know I have an HOA. I talked to our HOA the other day, and I told them, hey, to sign up before these doggone things are gone. So get them before they're gone. And so please do that. Last but not least, 2 last quick announcements. One is Giving Tuesday. Tuesday, November 28th is Giving Tuesday. Make your donations to our organization on our donation page. You can go, so the 28th is Giving Tuesday. That's the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So make sure that we are on your list to donate to Greater Washington Region Clean Cities. We do a lot of great work. The last announcement is December 7th, Thursday, December 7th. We're having a job fair in Prince George's County. It's going to be at the Sports and Learning Center from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you are hiring, I know that a lot of these school districts that are on here are hiring, struggling to get workers, bus drivers, technicians, teachers, counselors, and everything in between. Sign up for this career fair. It's going to be a standing room only crowd. And so we want to make sure we have well represented from transportation all the way to executive positions. So please make sure you sign up for that. It's free to participate. So all you got to do is bring yourself. All right. Thank you. So without further ado, we have three great speakers today. We will allow them to give their presentation and remarks, and then we'll come back for some questions. So our first speaker today is Catherine Roboff, is Deputy Director of External Affairs for the Electric School Bus Initiative, which aims to engage partners in the goal of electrifying the U.S. school bus fleet by 2030. And prior to joining WRI, Catherine worked in nonprofit management as well, serving as Executive Director of Higher Achievement DC, and many, many other accomplishments. Paul S. DeAndre. Paul is a seasoned transportation professional with more than 2 decades of experience in the fields of mass transit and pupil transportation, currently serving as the Assistant Director for Fairfax County Public Schools. Paul has a crucial role in ensuring the secure transportation of over 147,000 students. That's a lot of responsibility, Paul. And I tell people all the time, your number one job is getting those kids there and back on time, right? And safely. So all this other stuff is good, but that's his number one job, is making sure those kids get there on time and he's not on the news. Paul has spearheaded a lot of great initiatives, and we're so proud of the work that he's doing with his more than 2,000 vehicles he's responsible in Fairfax County. Next is Chiba Baldwin, Director of Transportation and Central Garage at Prince George's County Public Schools. He is new in his position, but he has many, many, many years of experience in leading Prince George's County recently. And they're doing a lot of great work. Like, I think they got 2 electric school buses on their fleet now, and hopefully growing. I know they put in an application this summer, which we should help them with. And hopefully they're going to apply in January when the next round is due. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Catherine.
Great. Antoine, thank you so much for having me and hosting this event. Antoine didn't mention that he is a member of our advisory council at the Electric School Bus Initiative. So very grateful for our partnership always. I'm Catherine Roboff. I am here today to help set the stage and share a little bit about the landscape of funding opportunities for school bus electrification. And I think, Laurel, are you the one who's going to be sharing the slides with everybody? I hope so. I'm not seeing them yet. Oh, there they are. Great. So I'm also just delighted to be joined by Fairfax and Prince George's County, and a special thank you to Paul, who I have worked with in the past. Great to have you here. So we are really excited about a whole range of funding opportunities for electric school buses. And Laurel, if you go to the next slide, I'll quickly share that my project, the Electric School Bus Initiative, is part of a bigger nonprofit called the World Resources Institute. And you can see here that we have a very ambitious, but we think very important aim to work towards the electrification of the full U.S. school bus fleet by the year 2030. We take a systems-wide approach to that mission and partner with a very wide-ranging set of stakeholders, everybody from community and environmental justice organizations to school districts, the electric power sector, policymakers at all levels. We are working to build unstoppable momentum to electrify the full fleet, which is, as you can see here, 480,000 school buses across the US. And most importantly, we are committed to doing this equitably, both in terms of the distribution of the benefits of electric school buses, but also the process along the way. So that's just a little bit of background about our program. And actually on the next slide, you can just see a sample of the different resources that we've created. I encourage you to check out our website at some point. We have dozens of resources to support school districts and electric utilities, policymakers, and others on their electric school bus journey. Everything we do is free, so please feel free to share these resources widely. Before I cover the landscape of funding opportunities, on the next slide, Laurel, I have a little bit of information about why school bus electrification is so important and valuable. You may be familiar with these many reasons, but electrification, of course, can accelerate decarbonization, which, as we know, is important. But I would say even more immediately, electric school buses can contribute to improved health and cognitive outcomes for kids. They are the only school bus type that do not have a tailpipe, so they have no tailpipe emissions. Whereas in contrast, as I think everyone on the call here knows, diesel fumes have proven links to negative health and cognitive development impacts on kids and communities. More broadly, electric school buses can contribute to cleaner air for school communities, depot communities, and this is especially important for communities of color and low-income communities who face disproportionate exposure to on-road vehicle pollution. The next benefit here is one that everybody loves: reduced operating expenses. Our analysis shows that electric school buses can save well over $100,000 per bus over the lifetime of the bus when you look at the fuel and operational and maintenance savings. And those savings are a very key feature that we will discuss momentarily when we talk a little bit about financing opportunities for ESBs or electric school buses. We see opportunity for new jobs in green manufacturing. We see an opportunity not just for school buses, but for the broader medium and heavy duty vehicle sector. As I mentioned, there are nearly 500,000 electric, well, someday there'll be 500,000 electric school buses. Right now, there are 500,000 school buses. And that is by far the largest public fleet in the country. It's definitely the largest bus fleet in the country. To put that in perspective, there are somewhere between 60 and 70,000 transit buses. And what this means is that electrifying school buses can help set up the manufacturing capacity, the charging infrastructure, the supply chains that can propel the broader medium and heavy duty sector forward. And we see opportunities for enhanced resiliency and renewables integration with vehicle to grid applications in which energy is stored in this case, an electric school bus battery, and then discharged back to the grid at a time of need or sent back to a building load or something along those lines, boosting overall resiliency for the community and for the grid. So suffice it to say, there are many reasons to pursue school bus electrification. And on the next slide, Laurel, we can start to talk about how to make this happen. Like, how do we actually fund these buses? You probably are aware that electric school buses cost more than an equivalent diesel bus. Currently, they cost about 3 to 4 times a diesel bus. And we fully expect those costs to come down over time. In fact, we are expecting that the lifetime total cost of owning an electric school bus will achieve parity with a diesel bus by around the second half of this decade. So that's encouraging. In the meantime, there's a critical role that funding programs and financing mechanisms can play to make electric school buses accessible to more and more communities. And so today we're going to be looking at the EPA's Clean School Bus Program, state and utility sources of funding, a new player in the game, which are the IRA tax credits. And then we'll talk briefly about financing and alternative business models as possibilities as well. The first one that I want to talk about, and the one you've probably heard about, is EPA's Clean School Bus Program. This is a program, actually, if you go to the next slide, Laurel, This is a program that was created under the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, also known as the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law. And it includes $5 billion for clean school buses. That's billion with a B. So it's a huge, truly unprecedented amount of funding. EPA is the Environmental Protection Agency is in charge of implementing this program over a 5-year period. And as you can see here, the first round of funding distributed through the program saw huge demand for electric school buses. Nearly $1 billion was awarded, with 95% going towards ESBs. Since then, EPA opened and closed a second round of funding, which was a grant program, and we're now in the midst of a third round of funding, which opened in September and is making $500 million available through a rebate application. On the next slide, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the rebates. They are open now, and so I'm dwelling here because this is a live opportunity that if you're not considering, definitely take a look. The $500 million is available through a relatively quick application for up to 25 school buses per applicant, and awardees will be selected through a lottery process. Applications are open through January 31st. So Antoine, you got your dates right. That was great. In terms of who can apply, eligible applicants are public school districts, tribal applicants, and third parties, which includes private school transportation contractors. There's only one application allowed per school district, but third parties who are applying on behalf of multiple districts can submit multiple applications. And then there's this question of prioritization. So EPA is in this process, as in past rounds, prioritizing certain school districts to have priority in the lottery process, but also receive higher funding amounts through the rebate. Priority districts include high need districts, districts in low income areas, certain rural districts, districts funded by the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and districts in U.S. territories. If you go on the EPA website, you can see a list of the priority districts. You can also see a list of districts that are eligible to self-certify for priority status at the time of their application. So definitely go to the EPA website to check that out. I think there are over 6,000 districts that are eligible for self-certification, so that might be you. So take a look. EPA overall expects to award approximately 60% of funds this time to the prioritized districts. Before we go to the next page, a couple of other quick points. This is a replacement program, so any buses procured through this opportunity must replace old buses. For the old buses being replaced, EPA is targeting diesel buses that are model year 2010 or older. However, newer buses are eligible to be replaced if you're replacing them with an electric school bus, and if the applicant has no model year 2010 or older buses in its fleet. And there are also related to this scrappage requirements. So school buses being replaced must be scrapped if they're older than 2010. However, newer buses being replaced can be sold or donated instead. As you can imagine, the EPA program guidance has quite a bit of detail on all of this, so I encourage you to take a look. On the next slide, I've quickly outlined the funding levels. The amounts included in this chart are per bus for anywhere between 1 and 25 buses. If you are a priority district or self-certify as one, you can get up to $345,000 per bus to cover up to the full cost of the bus plus charging infrastructure. If you're not a prioritized district, that number is $200,000. And all districts are eligible for an additional $20,000 for accessible buses if you purchase a bus with a wheelchair lift. And then there's also $20,000 available in certain geographies to pay for shipping the buses. So those last couple of features are new this round. The next slide has a little bit of information about the application process itself. Applications are going to be submitted on EPA's website through a portal that they've set up there. Actually, Laurel, if you can go to the next slide. The second bullet here is one I want to dwell on for a second. It's important to make sure you have an active registration as an entity on sam.gov with a unique entity ID in order to apply. This is something that if you're not aware of it, the business officer in the school district or other person that is in charge of financing or federal funding might know. You'll want to do this step first if you're not already registered, as it can take a little while to get set up, and you'll need that UEI number on your application on the EPA page. There are also a couple of other steps that you'll want to start sooner rather than later, like the school board awareness form, a utility partnership agreement. And if you're a third party applying on behalf of a school district, there's also a school district approval form. But check out the EPA program guide for all of this information. That little box on the right just speaks to the fact that there is other federal funding available outside of the Clean School Bus Program, like DERA, the Diesel Emissions Reduction Act funding, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture's Community Facilities Loan and Grant Program. Clean School Bus Program funds cannot be stacked with other federal funds for purchasing electric school buses. That's not uncommon with many federal funding programs, but they can often be stacked with state and local funds. And this is important. EPA has clarified that the Clean School Bus Program funds can be combined with tax credits, the ones in the IRA. So that is useful. We'll talk about that in a minute too. So that's all I've got on Clean School Bus Program. But on the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about some of the state and local opportunities. There are many. I'm definitely not going to be able to list them all, but we actually have a clearinghouse on our website. The link is at the bottom of the slide there, that lists, and you can sort state and utility and federal funding opportunities for which electric school buses are eligible. So check that out. We're actually in the process of updating it. We update it about every 6 months. But all told, there's over $3 billion in state funding available. Many states, for example, have used over the last several years some of their Volkswagen settlement funding on electric school bus programs. And likewise, many electric utilities have incentive or make-ready programs that can benefit ESBs. Nearby, and we'll hear momentarily about Dominion Energy's electric school bus program. Duke Energy has a program. NV Energy had a program that I think closed this summer. So utility funding as well. But take a look at that clearinghouse, and you can sort it by your location or type of funding to see what you might be eligible for. And in fact, on the next slide, I've pulled out a few examples of state level funding in this region. And by this, I mean Maryland, Virginia, and DC. You can see Maryland has its electric school bus program pilot. This is a utility program. The Public Service Commission, the PSC, is charged with administering an ESB program that the IOUs, the utilities, can implement in their service territories. So that is getting up and running. Maryland also has a clean fuels incentive program that will cover up to $150,000 for the incremental costs of an electric school bus. And that's one where school districts are eligible to apply. In DC, there's the Alternative Fuel Vehicle Infrastructure and Conversion Tax Credit. I could be wrong, but I have not heard of this one being used yet for electric school buses, but it could conceivably fund repowered ESBs. And finally, there's this opportunity in Virginia offering $10,000 per vehicle for the incremental cost of new or converted or repowered alternative fuel vehicles, including electric school buses. So that's just a sample of the great information you'll find in the clearinghouse, and the fact that there are opportunities at the state level. They're uneven. Not every state has as many opportunities. The state that's leading in that regard is California, which I think is probably no surprise to people. They've had a variety of programs over the years, but more and more we're starting to see these opportunities in other areas as well. If you go to the next slide, there's a new opportunity in the mix. This is sort of back up at the federal level. The Inflation Reduction Act created tax credits that can support the purchase of electric school buses and charging infrastructure. You can see in that second bullet, it says direct payment options. This is critical. You may be aware of this, but the IRA has made it possible for entities without tax liability, including school districts, to be eligible to receive these credits as a direct payment. In some recent conversations I've had with school districts, they're still kind of like wrapping their heads around what this means, knowing that in the past, tax credits just haven't been something they've been eligible for. But in this case, for instance, there's the Qualified Commercial Clean Vehicles Credit, which comes under Section 45W of the IRA and will offer up to $40,000 per electric school bus, or the alternative fuel refueling property credit, which offers up to $100,000 per charging infrastructure installation. So these are not insignificant. And again, EPA has clarified that these can be stacked on top of the Clean School Bus Program funds. There are a few resources at the bottom for learning more about direct pay and about these credits. And I'll highlight in particular this December 5th webinar that EPA is putting on with Treasury. And I think it'll be good to kind of have both of them in the same room to ask your questions about how this will work in the case of ESBs. I promise I'm almost done. I am like really talking a long time. Laurel, if you go to the next slide, this slide is very basically pointing out that in addition to funding, there's a real opportunity for financing when it comes to electric school buses. And that is because electric school buses offer significant operational and fuel savings over the course of their lifetime. On the left, we have a Type C diesel bus. On the right, we have a Type C electric school bus, and you can see that there's over $150,000 in savings on a per bus basis. So while electric school buses are higher on the upfront cost, right? They have high CapEx. People like to say they are low on operating costs. And this gives districts a chance to monetize those savings. They can use those savings as the basis for financing. And ultimately what this does is allows school districts to restructure their school bus electrification costs so that they more closely resemble the operational budget and the cash flow characteristics of diesel vehicles, which is of course what districts are used to. So on the next slide, we have some of the financing mechanisms that could potentially play in this space. I will say grants, rebates, free money have been the majority of funding to date, but we are starting to see some emerging interest in and examples of financing mechanisms entering this space. Private loans from commercial banks, public loans from the green bank sector or state financing authorities. They're in a position to provide potentially low-cost capital or other mechanisms like credit enhancement. Bonds, and when I say bonds, I'm thinking mostly about municipal bonds. There's a great example out of Austin Independent School District, which recently set a target to electrify its full school bus fleet by 2035. And as part of their plan to do this, they are leveraging the 2022 bond that the city passed last year, with $25 million of that funding going towards their first tranche of electric school buses. And since they re-up this bond every few years, they're planning to use future municipal bonds for additional electric school bus procurement. So that's an interesting example to keep an eye on. Leases, which is sort of the private lenders associated with vehicle manufacturers. We have the as-a-service firms, which are about different business models in which financing can be embedded in subscription fees. And then finally, inclusive utility investments. This is when an electric utility would help a school bus operator make initial capital investments in their buses and their charging infrastructure, and then recoup that capital investment through on-bill financing or like a surcharge on that customer's bill. So that was like a whirlwind tour of different potential financial mechanisms that can complement funding. We wrote an article about this not too long ago on our website, so you can go into more depth there. And then my last slide is this quick taxonomy. This is, I would call like an important footnote to this whole conversation, which is that while school bus business models over time have been relatively static, with some districts kind of doing sort of the full ownership and operation of school buses and others choosing to outsource to private contractors, with electrification, we're seeing a bigger mix of business models entering the scene, in which the roles are spread out across different players, and the roles are different because now you have charger owners, energy managers, electricity customers. And as new players kind of come onto the scene to partner with school districts in electrifying their fleets, they are often offering financing as part of that service package, and part of their business model. And so, you know, there's a lot more to be said here. School districts really need to think about what the options are, and weigh them against kind of, you know, what's best for their needs. But I share this business model concept because it's another way to think about financing and procuring electric school buses. I think my true last slide is just a bunch of resources, but we'll get these circulated to you all so you can take a look at that funding and financing clearinghouse, and some of the other resources that we have to support districts and other operators as they're applying for Clean School Bus Program, applying for some of these other opportunities. I'm done. I think I went a little longer, Antoine. I'm sorry.
No worries. We want to make sure we get to the others so we can take some questions. We got a lot of folks on the call today, so I want to make sure. But thank you for all that insight. I'm sure we're going to have a number of questions, and hopefully people will apply, because that deadline in January will be here before you know it. The thing I'm most excited about is the fact that it's a 2-page application again or something like that. So it really is no reason why school districts should not participate. They also put some safeguards in there this time, because they had dealers and people just applying without the school district knowing or halfway talking with them. So there's some safeguards. Nothing's foolproof, but I think it's a lot better. And it's easier than this whole other way they just did it. So next I want to go to Paul. Paul, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Excellent. I promise I don't have any slides. Definitely want to thank you guys for inviting me, Antoine, and the rest of the team. Just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about my journey in electrification of school buses. Worked for Fairfax County Public Schools. We were mandated by our school board to go fully electric in 2035. We have 28 buses on site in operation at this time, all partially funded through grants. Our first 8 buses were funded by our Dominion Partnership grant, where they covered the difference between the cost of a regular diesel and the electric bus. Those first 8, they've been in service since 2022. And we have some really good feedback from staff, and then additional to students and teachers. The second series of grants was the Volkswagen DEQ grant, with section 1 and 2. We received 10 buses from both grants. We have the first 10 in service in our Lorton facility in the southern part of Fairfax County. And the next 10 is currently in the process of being checked and made sure that it's okay to go on the road. So those next 10 should be in service sometime early in January. So it's exciting to have 28 buses, one of the biggest fleets of electric buses in Virginia. And we're excited to continue on. We've had multiple grant opportunities that the team has been applied for. They applied for the EPA Inflation Reduction Act grant, and also the DOE Renew America grant. Unfortunately, we were not awarded those grants because a lot of the focus was on the rural areas and disadvantaged areas. And this is one of the feedbacks we gave to the DEA. I'm sorry, the part DOE in regards to our strifes and our challenges with funding opportunities as being a bigger district. So we continue now. We're in the process of submitting. We submitted the application for the EPA Clean School Bus Grant. So we did it two ways. We did it individually, where we applied for 42 buses, and then we worked with our partner Sunny Merriman to apply for 20. We don't believe we could do both. It's probably going to be one or the other. Fingers crossed it's the one for 42, but definitely we'll be excited to continue to work with Sunny Merriman with that application. So those are the things that we have on deck. And of course, we're looking at the rebates that's due in January. Our team is diligently working on getting those applications in. And of course, we'll be on that December 5th conference call to get the information from the Department of EPA also.
All right, I see the chat is on fire, so we'll take some questions. We'll give you some questions in a minute. We'll go next. We will go to is Kiva on or someone else representing for Kiva?
I am here. Sorry for joining the party late.
Hey, how you doing?
Doing well, doing well. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Good to see you today. I know they're keeping you busy out there.
Absolutely. All for fun, though. Enjoy every last bit of it. So,
okay.
Great. Just a simple updates. We are in expected delivery of 20 electric school buses, combination of International and Bluebird buses. We're hoping that we will have those before we depart for our holiday break. Again, we already have one electric school bus in service here in Prince George's County. It's a Bluebird bus that we have been using since the summer. And right now that's been very productive for us. It's been a great learning tool to help decipher in terms of what types of routes, how long it should be in service, the routes that we're using the bus for in order to get the most optimization for usage. And now we are really in an infrastructure planning mode. With the anticipated buses coming in and more to be coming, we have to be focused on our infrastructure to support the supply of the buses that we have. And with 1,200 buses, diesel buses that we've been operating in the past and trying to transition to the electric, we're going to have to be strategic with the service area to support that. And so we are actively in conversation with our capital improvements department here in our transportation and looking at viable ways on how we can support that with our infrastructure. And so conversations with the mobile charging stations, we're talking with our public works department because our public works department has a transit system in which they have about, I think, 12 electric transit buses operating around Prince George's County. So we definitely think we're going to have to collaborate for space because the initiative is here. Much like my partner here in Fairfax, I think our climate action plan gives us about 2030 to have electric school buses in place. So that's a tall order that we are working to fulfill. And so we learn every day and we try to get a little wiser with the anticipated demands coming. So I'm interested to see with the delivery of our electric buses, we may not have delivery of our chargers. And so we're working with that. And again, that goes back to the global supply chain. Those are things that are out of our control. And so we do the best with that. And so we're working with our vendors to ensure that we can have a delivery of those buses and our charging stations in a timely manner, so our buses don't have to sit, and we can be prepared to put them on the road once they've cleared our initial assessment. So that's kind of in a nutshell where we are. Still, get my feet wet being here, and with all the initiatives that we have going, but it has definitely been a just resounding source of innovation, and I love it. I love the path on where we're headed. So,
thank you. I want to just give briefly. I think she's still on, Pamela Boostrother from the school board, Prince George's County. Is she still on? I'm trying to.
I'm still here. Yeah. Hey.
Hey, how are
Great.
you? I just
I'm
want to
doing
give
great.
I'm going to open up for questions in a second, but I just wanted to give you a quick minute to say thank you for your leadership in passing the climate action plan for the county, and being just a breath of fresh air to helping to keep this ball moving along. We know it's not easy. Kiva, I know it's not easy. Paul, I know it's not easy. But we appreciate you, Pam, for doing what you've been doing. You're a national leader in this subject, and just want to see if you had any quick words of encouragement.
Oh, well, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Antoine. You have been a breath of fresh air for us of valuing public school sector in clean energy. So thank you, and Greater Washington Region Clean Cities Coalition. So for folks who don't know, I'm Pamela Boozer-Strother. I'm a Board of Education member for Prince George's County Public Schools, and a couple of years ago, I set out with the backing of the Board of Education and an amazing co-chair, Joseph Jakuda of the Sierra Club Climate Parents, to form a work group to produce a comprehensive climate change action plan for the school system. And we were able to pull together our history of great work in environmental education and where we were with clean energy schools, like use of geothermal and a little bit of solar, and the pathway that Dr. Monica Goldson, as our former CEO, had already put us on. So we were able to turn that into year 2030 goals, which Director Baldwin just noted for clean energy school buses included there, to 2040 goal, 2040, I think, for the buses actually in the clean energy schools, 2030 for composting and some other initiatives. So curriculum initiatives and others. So it is from students advocacy to parent advocacy to staff advocacy, and now oversight with our first director of sustainability and resilience, Ms. Morrison, who has joined us. So I'm looking forward to her leadership internally and the board. The movement from the board perspective, watching the movement of the reports has actually been at such an incredible pace that I'm learning new things all the time. I love just learning some new things from Director Baldwin right now. So we're really proud of the plan, and we appreciate World Resources Institute and everyone's support. So thank you so much.
Thank you. So we have some questions. All right, the first question I'm going to read is for Paul. Is Dominion Energy providing infrastructure assistance?
So I'll take it from there. Thank you, Robert. That's a good question. So we do have a partnership with Dominion Energy for all of our current buses. They have been really working with us hand in hand. We don't have an arrangement for the entire fleet. So a lot of it is just having those conversations, and as we build them out and kind of work through. So we do have the commitment for the 28 buses that we currently have, and the 3 buses that we purchased outright and that we should receive early next year. So we're working with them for the charging infrastructure. So they've provided charging infrastructure for all those buses.
All right, thank you. The next one, there's a comment from Lynn Harris from Board of Education in Montgomery County. And Kiba, I think this one is for you. It says, we are watching what Prince George's County Public Schools is doing around combating the climate crisis. All
Mhm.
right.
Okay.
And so I think that's more of a comment.
Yeah.
Let me
So there's one here I'm just looking at from the DDOT
okay.
that the Department of Transportation, the DC Department of Transportation has purchased property in PG for a future EV charging site. Was not familiar with that, but that's something we can find out. I'm pretty sure maybe our partners at the Public Works that operate the bus transit system here may know a little bit more about that. So that's something I can reach out. Thank you for sharing that.
All right. So Catherine, maybe you can hit this one. Do independent schools qualify for EPA funding?
Not for the Clean School Bus Program. Nope. It's for public schools, which can be traditional public schools or charter schools.
All right. And we've got a couple more minutes left, and I'll let you all give your closing comments. So I want to ask each of you quick question, both Paul and Kiba. What if there's one thing that you would give advice to folks as if they're getting started, they haven't gotten a bus, or if they've only had a few buses? I know, like, you all are, Paul, you've got the most experience because you got 18, but I'm sure you're still learning some things. And maybe we'll start with you, Paul. If there was one or two things you could do differently, and you would give folks some good advice on, what would that first thing, those one or two things be?
So one of the first things I would say when you're jumping into the space is realizing that you're not alone. The mere fact that you guys are logged in is important to say that you realize that, right? But you do have, a lot of organizations that are willing to help and willing to give information, to include WRI. So that's the first thing. And you have to understand the scope of where you're going. And you want to be on the cutting edge, but not the bleeding edge of technology. You don't want to jump all the way in and, like, let's say, for instance, we have 1,625 buses. We can't replace 1,625 buses in 1 year. And even when we do so 10 years, 15 years down the road, we're already antiquated. So you have to really come up with a plan that you could watch technology and understand this technology is growing and it's getting better. We have our limitations with mileage, typically to about 120, 150. I'm sure 5 years from now, we're going to have buses that are going 300 miles between charges. So really look at the technology, understand, know that you're not alone, and know you have the resources.
Man, he took all of my words. I would ditto everything that Paul said. I think just adding that you have that collaboration again with your stakeholders. I think being here in PGCPS and having Ms. Boozer Struthers as a great ally and an advocate for this process is important, which leads to show that we want to have a collective effort on all levels, because it's not just transportation. We affect the students, the teachers, the communities, all have an impact in what we do. So my one takeaway would be have that collaboration of information sharing, knowledge base, and prioritizing on the path that you take to securing your EV fleet.
We got a couple more minutes left, so I want to just get through a couple more questions. Have either of you implemented any battery storage infrastructure in tandem with the charging infrastructure for the school buses, which is becoming more popular? The same thing with microgrids as well. Have either of you looked at those as well, or have you implemented any of those concepts yet? Either battery storage, and they didn't mention microgrids, but I want to ask about that too.
Mm-hmm. We have started the conversation with our energy provider here, BG&E. Those are some of the outcomes that we're hoping to start when we begin this process. And so it's in conversation, but nothing that we have implemented as of yet.
Right, Paul?
Right. So on two fronts, our agreement with Dominion Energy is for vehicle to grid, where they pull energy in and out of the system. We haven't started yet. So we have that one front. The second front is looking at microgrids, trying to get on the capital improvement plans from, with our facilities folks and saying, hey, listen, we know that we're renovating this school in 2030. Let's build into it where you have those redundancies, those microgrids, and trying to really get it to a net zero building. And I think those are the ways that you really kind of get into those conversations. And so those conversations have started. We're getting a seat at the table and trying to push it forefront.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, I think we got two more questions. This chat is on fire today. All right. Someone asked, if a private school uses a third-party contractor for people to transport, does that qualify them for EPA? No, that won't qualify, she said. Okay, I want to give each of you 1 minute to give some closing comments. We'll start with Catherine.
I'll keep mine really quick because I was way too long. But there is a lot of momentum in this space. At the federal level, there's funding. We're starting to see more funding at the state level, and we're pushing for even more. So take a look at what's available to you. And we're always here to help you figure out how to make it happen. Oh, and talk to your utility early.
Yes, very important. Plan. Make sure your transportation, your facilities people, your work and your unions as well. No one talked about that. Make sure if most of these school districts have unions, you want to make sure they're part of that conversation because there may be some workforce issues, right? Training and deployment. And I would also just say, make sure that you put equity into where you're deploying those buses so that the areas of the community that have the worst air quality get those buses first. Let's go to Paul, then we'll wrap up with Kiva.
Got it. Definitely training is important, but one thing that is very important also as you bring in these buses, especially the first couple of buses, is getting buy-in from your staff. Drivers, they sometimes diesel runs through their veins and they don't want to hear anything about electric buses. So you really have to kind of identify your advocates, your teams of drivers that's going to add to it. One of the things we did, and just to sum up real quick, we brought the buses to our team meetings so people could see it, people could ride on it, people could hear that it's quiet, and it kind of breaks down that stigma.
I love it. That's a great suggestion. I've been on a few of these and they didn't let everybody see them. You gotta have buy-in from the drivers and all the workers and the parents. Kiva?
Again, I'm just gonna keep it with our collaboration, involvement of our CIP teams, our district leaders, board members, to keep the plan active and making sure that we have no cracks is a big part. So keeping that collaboration, I would say, is going to be an important insight to maintaining your EV fleet.
And I will say this to everyone as we wrap up. Just a couple of things. One, Laurel, when is Giving Tuesday again, Laurel?
It is on November 28th.
All right, so put that in the chat for them. You can actually give today in the spirit of Thanksgiving. You can give earlier. But I want to say to everyone, before we wrap up, I want to thank you all for being here today. I also think that people need to understand that the federal money is only a down payment. It's a stimulus. It's designed to stimulate this investment. Local and state governments and other funding sources will be necessary to accelerate and to complete this transition. So we've got to we have to double down on it. Some states are passing Bond Acts. I would love to see more local and state governments allocating even more money to accelerate this transition to clean school buses. So without further ado, I want to thank you all for being here. Everyone have a safe and enjoyable holiday next week. Don't spend too much money. And don't forget to donate for Giving Tuesday and put GWRCCC on your list. God bless and have a great weekend. Bye-bye. Thanks to our staff too.